What's going on, guys? So today I'm going to show you how to merge these two images and how to turn a photo taken in the middle of the day into a night photo. You know, you can add the stars, the Milky Way, and turn it into a full-on astrophotography photo. So now that we're on my computer, the first thing is I've got my two photos pulled up in Photoshop. So here's a photo I took in Grand Teton National Park, and here's a photo I took at Alabama Hills in California. So first off, this light down here on this photo, we were using a flashlight to light the foreground, which in this photo made the sky darker. Nonetheless, this is a very good sky exposure of the Milky Way, so I'm going to use it. And this photo was a really cool lake, but the sky was just so bluebird that it just wasn't that interesting. So today I'm going to merge these two photos, and first thing I need to do is get kind of just a base edit on both of these to match, because this one right now is very bright, almost overexposed down here, and this one's very dark, at least the sky, which is the part I want. So first thing I'm going to do is just pop into camera raw filter for the stars and bump the exposure. And for now, I'm going to leave it at that. Just keep it flat just so I can kind of see it, and then bring it over into this photo. And for this, I will do Command J, copy my background layer, and then come to camera raw filter. And I just want to dull this out. I'm not worried about the sky because I'm going to take that out, but I want to dull out this foreground. I want it to make it relatively flat. Basically, because if I have it flat, it's easier to blend later on rather than like right now where it's really bright over here and kind of dark over here. So I'm going to make this flat for now, and then we'll come back in and change it when we blend the images. So I'm going to drop my highlights, crank my shadows, drop my whites, bring up my blacks, and then just drop my exposure because we're going to make this appear as if it is a nighttime image. For now, we'll do that. We can always do more if we need. And then get the white balance where I'd like. That looks pretty good, so click OK. Alright, so now we have kind of a flat, dull image on the darker side, and we have our stars, which are a little bit brighter. I'm going to grab the rectangular marquee tool for this, and I'm going to make a selection to about what I want. So right now, if I drag this whole photo over, I'm just going to have a lot of distractions, and I want to minimize that. So I'm going to bring this down to maybe like right here. So obviously the arch is in this. What I should have done is taken a photo of just the Milky Way, but for this, I'm just going to use this as an example to show you guys it does not need to be perfect, and this arch won't be in the way in the end of this. So to make a layer of this selection, just do Command J, and as you will see here on layer 1, we now have this photo of pretty much just the stars, and then there's a little bit here too. So now with just the move tool selected, I'm just going to drag this upward to this photo and drop it. And then just kind of see where we're at. I have it right up to the top of the photo, and now I'm going to do Command T for this and just drag this down, because as you can see there's blue right here and we don't want that. That should be good. And now as a visual, just kind of checkpoint to where I'm at, I'm going to turn this on and off and kind of visualize where the stars land in the photo and if the arch is out or not, or if we need to do some more moving of this. It looks like the top of the arch might be right there. Let's see. I can drop my opacity to get a better look. Yep, if you look right here, the arch overlaps with the sky, and we don't want the arch in this photo. So I'm just going to do Command T again and stretch that out. And now that's not going to be an issue at all, so just click Enter on that, as you can see, and I'll bring the opacity back up. So for now, I'm going to turn the eye on that layer off and just kind of hone in on my sky and make sure I have this layer selected. And I'm going to grab the quick selection tool right here. I'm going to use the bracket keys to make it a little bit bigger, and I just want to get a selection of my sky. Photoshop does an amazing job getting a super precise selection, especially when it's something like this where it's mountains and there's hard edges. If it's trees, it's a little bit harder, but I am going to zoom in just to kind of double check, and if I need to change the selection, I can. Looks good. I'll bring a smaller selection in. And to negate the selection Photoshop has done, while you kind of click anything new, you're just gonna hold down the Option or Alt key, and you can see that this that has a plus sign on it, when I click that, it'll turn to minus. So I'm gonna hold that. And this really does not need to be perfect, and as you do it, Photoshop will do some auto updating based on your selection. But this, as it is gonna blend just fine, almost perfectly. And I'm gonna go through the rest of this and just speed it up. Sweet, so I am super happy with that. So right now we can either make a layer mask, or just because everything we don't want is pretty much perfectly selected, all you have to do is click delete and then hide the background layer. And there we go. Just like that, the sky is deleted. So I'm gonna do Command D to deselect. And I'm just gonna put our sky back in, and I'm gonna put it under our foreground layer. And just like that, you have the Milky Way behind, and this did a really good job on the selection tool. As you can see, this looks extremely fake, and obviously it is, because we're kind of moving into the realm of digital art, and adding Milky Way to the middle of the day photo isn't gonna always look real. So to fix this, we have to do quite a bit of blending. So as you guys saw, I did my basic editing for this to dull it out, and I just kind of brought this up a little bit in exposure, and that was just kind of to get them on a similar playing field. But now that we have the images cut out and put together as we want them, now we need to pretty much make a merge visible layer and blend the two photos together. And the better you blend them through your editing and everything you do, the better it's gonna look and the more natural it's gonna look. Right before I do the merge visible layer though, this sky, the white balance is very magenta, where the foreground is very green and kind of warm and blue, but the sky is not. So with my sky selected, I'm gonna come up to Camera Raw Filter, which is essentially just Lightroom, and I'm just gonna fix this white balance. Take that magenta out, bring in some blues. That looks pretty good. Click OK. And that right there already makes the blend look so much better and more natural looking. However, gonna do some more to kind of just fix it overall. So Command Option Shift E, that's your merge visible layer. And as you can see, if I turn off these layers, this merge visible is just everything below it. So I'm gonna bring that back into Camera Raw Filter. And I'm just gonna edit this as a whole, and everything we do together, since the sky and the foreground, it's gonna bring the blending together, where like right here it looks like a flat cutout of what we did. Now it's already starting to look like we blended this together. Click OK. That looks solid. I'm gonna bring a dodge burn layer, which is just Option New Layer. Gone over this stuff in other videos, so I'm gonna kind of just go quick through that with a black brush at 20% opacity. I'm going to zoom out on this. Just going to kind of create an additional vignette. Kind of just play with the light a little. The left side's a little bit too bright. Alright, and one other thing I noticed is right down here, there's a shadow. And this is because probably just the way the sun was hitting the rocks around this area. Obviously, with this sky, when there's not a single cloud in the sky, that's going to look unnatural and gonna be a dead giveaway. So I'm gonna make a merge visible layer again, bring up my spot healing brush tool, and Photoshop should do a good job at this, but I'm just going to try to take this out. It's distracting, and it's just a giveaway that it is clearly Photoshopped. So that looks pretty solid. I mean, it's grass and rocks, so it doesn't need to really be perfect. It's just taking information from surrounding pixels. But that looks much better. As you can see, it looks a lot more natural. And then right down here, there are a few smaller shadows that we want to fix to make this blend better. That's solid. And now I'm going to bring in a levels adjustment layer, because that will also bring the blend a little bit better. So I'm just gonna do like an average S curve on this. It is a bit punchy kind of overall here. So I'm gonna do another merge visible layer, and on this layer I'm gonna add a Gaussian blur. I feel like if in some of the areas where things don't matter, like these patches of grass and stuff, if I bring in some blur, it'll help make the photo not look overall so crunchy and kind of just all over the place. So I think somewhere around, I'm gonna do 6 because I can't bring it back up, but in the end I could always change the opacity of the overall layer. So I'm going to put on a layer mask and invert it so nothing shows, and then I'm going to grab a white brush to bring in the blur on the areas I want. I'm going to speed this up kind of just because I'm going to be brushing all over. Alright, so right there is a before and after. It's super subtle, but I just think overall it gives kind of the photo a softer feel, which I think is really nice because otherwise it was just very, very contrasted. I'm going to make a merge visible layer to kind of just see our before and after. Before, after, before, after. That's a huge, huge difference. I am going to bring in a brightness and contrast layer. Bring up the brightness and the contrast, invert that, and kind of just brush that over a little bit of the sky because the foreground has a lot of brights but the sky does not. So I'm just going to bring up some contrast there. That helps just a little bit, you know. I think I'm also going to bring in some vibrance on the sky. Invert that, kind of same idea. And then I'm just going to play a little bit with the colors to try to kind of just get things to match a little bit. Like the greens down here don't exactly match kind of the colors in the sky, obviously. But I'm just going to play with that. Bring down the opacity of the sky a little bit to kind of match the hue and saturation I'm doing in the foreground. I think that overall in the foreground is just kind of bringing down those greens. You know, when you have a night sky, you don't have that much saturation in the foreground, so I think that just kind of overall helps that. And then I'm going to bring in one more dodge burn layer to kind of add a little bit more vignetting. So grab a black brush, light opacity. Alright, so I'm going to bring in one last just kind of overall vibrance and kind of color to it, just for personal preference to the overall image. I think with that, I'm going to bring down a little bit of saturation of the aquas in the lake. See the before and after. I think that looks good. This is a little too dull. And I might bring in a graduated filter. Just going to set all of these to 0. This is just kind of helping the darkness and vignetting I have added. For after, alright, and I think overall that looks much, much better. Up here, the tones were getting a little too kind of dark and kind of faded. So I think this just kind of brings the photo back to life. So here's our last merge visible layer. I'm going to show you one before and after, and then just all the layers we went through. Alright, so that's before, and that's after. So it's a huge difference. You know, we took out the shadows, we took out this extra kind of almost overexposedness, kind of made this a more leveled photo. We brought in the sky. I think we blended it together pretty freaking nicely. And look at it from a distance or close up. That came together really well. So, you know, we brought in the sky, cut out the blue sky, camera raw, did some burning, took out the shadows, curves layer. That was the Gaussian blur, brightness contrast, vibrance, hue saturation, a little bit more darkening, another curves layer, and camera raw filter. So I think from start to finish, we did a really good job. You know, right when I brought these two images together, there was a super harsh line and you could tell these were totally different photos. But I think with all of the blending down here, we did quite a good job of turning this image from shot in the middle of the day into an image taken at night. So let me know what you guys think. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Thanks for watching.